was hit at least twice, I think, but then I came to the aid of Paul Schrady, who was hit right behind him, and the people did not see Mr. Schrady and were starting to step on him, and I straddled him and stayed there for the duration. And he had a head wound that may be very serious. However, he was conscious when we just
the local leader of the AFL-CIO, North American. What was his condition? Was he conscious?
He was conscious, and he had a good pulse, but the bullet went in here and came out at the back.
Now, that was not Senator Kennedy.
No,
Senator Kennedy's wounds. Can you indicate from what you learned the extent of his wounds?
I didn't pay much attention to the senator because he was immediately taken over by some doctors, and I wanted to see that Mr. Schrade was taken care of because he was about 6 feet away, and then his wife Ethel got through, and they did quite a bit of talking.
Now, apart from Kennedy and Schrade, who else was injured?
Well, there's 2 other people, and they just carried one young fellow, and I don't remember his name, but he had a leg wound.
What makes you believe that it was not a pistol or revolver?
Because there was more than 5 shots fired, and a revolver at most would have 6, and there was more than 6 shots fired.
Was there just one man doing the shooting? Did you see him?
I did not see the man, but I understand that they have caught him.
Can you describe the scene in there in more detail?
Well, absolute pandemonium broke out because it was a real narrow passageway. Probably 4 to 5 people abreast is all it could get through. So with the crush of newsmen and TV in back and those that preceded Kennedy, why they turned around and everybody was trying to get in there. And it was, it seemed like an awful long time before any ambulances got to the grounds, or there wasn't any stretchers available. In fact, we carried Schrady out on a table.
Can you describe the size of the room? Very small.
Oh, it was just a passageway. It was not a room at all. It was just a passageway between the dumbwaiters and where dishes and things were stored in the hall.
Did Senator Kennedy walk out?
No, Senator Kennedy was taken out on a stretcher. He was taken out first.
Was there any warning whatsoever that...
No warning, no yells, no anything. There was no yells or anything preceded the first shot.
Did the gunman say anything? Did you hear any shouts afterwards?
I didn't hear any shouts afterwards or anything because everybody really couldn't believe it at first. They thought, most people they always think it's firecrackers, you know, a celebration. And then they did, and then you heard shouts of, my God, he shot. And then everything, it really started, pandemonium really broke loose.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
That an eyewitness to what transpired here now about 40 minutes ago, just outside the ballroom here at the Ambassador Hotel. Again, to repeat, we do not know, here at least, the condition of Senator Kennedy at this time. We do know he was wounded. We've had several witnesses state that when he was taken from the hotel on a stretcher, he was conscious. He did say a few words to several people on the way down in the stretcher, on the way down to the ambulance. Joe, do you have more details where you are now?
Thank you very much, Terry. As is obvious, we are in our California primary studios. We had just finished covering the California primary where Senator Kennedy tonight had won an impressive victory over Senator McCarthy. But that victory soon turned to tragedy as the senator appeared in the embassy room of the Ambassador Hotel, naturally to meet his cheering fans. There was quite a bit of commotion, as might be expected. Many of the people there thought that this was merely another display of the ardor of the Kennedy fans who had followed his campaigning all the way along, and they were dumbfounded when it was clear what had happened. Shots had rang out. The senator had been wounded. Several other people on the platform, at least 3 at last count, had also been wounded in an exchange of gunfire. Not an exchange, an unknown assailant fired at 4 people. Mike Wallace, apparently you have some later information.
Joe, I have just talked to Roger Mudd, who is at the Central Receiving Hospital. Now, you're familiar with that place out there. Evidently, Senator Kennedy has been taken now, is on his way from the Central Receiving to the Good Samaritan Hospital, because there are evidently better surgical procedures available at the Good Samaritan Hospital. According to Roger, he was shot 4 times, once in the head, once in the hip, they think that they are sure. But his color was good. He was alive, shirt open. He appeared, as I say, to be hit in the head and the hip. There had been talk that Rayford Johnson had knocked down his assailant. It turns out that it was Rosie Greer from Los Angeles, who knocked down the assailant, who appeared to be 25 years old and white. He fired all of the shots from a 6-shot revolver and hit not only Senator Kennedy, but, according to Roger Mudd, an unidentified man, a woman, and a boy. That's about all that Roger has right now. He is still at the Central Hospital.
Yes, from the report that correspondent Terry Drinkwater was sending in just a short time ago, Paul Schrade, who is with the United Auto Workers, a young, dynamic union leader, was also on the platform and apparently was wounded along with Senator Kennedy. It is important at this point that we realize his eyes were open. He appeared to have been possibly a head wound, but he appeared to be conscious and capable of responding. He was taken to the Central Receiving Hospital, which in Los Angeles is a special hospital, in addition to serving the public, that is set aside for police and firemen who are emergency cases. Yes, I should hasten to add now that Senator Kennedy has been moved from Central Receiving Hospital to Good Samaritan Hospital. They have an intensive care unit at that particular hospital, so I am sure all of us can be certain that he is going to receive the best of care. By going to Central Receiving Hospital, the immediate emergency steps were taken. Good Samaritan Hospital has an intensive care unit, and Senator Kennedy should be getting the best medical attention. At least 5 doctors were on hand at the Ambassador Hotel, and I'm sure that more doctors now are standing by. The senator apparently is in condition good enough to be moved to another hospital. Correspondent Terry Drinkwater, who was covering the senator's appearance at the Ambassador Hotel when the shots were fired tonight, is now at the Ambassador Hotel. Terry, what's your latest report?
Joe, I'm with Mr. Green, one of the supporters of Senator Kennedy here and active in his campaign. Will you describe what you saw at the moment the shots were fired?
Well, precisely at the time the senator was shot, I was walking through one of the side kitchen doors. The senator was coming down to greet the crowd. There was one individual standing on top of a table. He was of Filipino, Mexican-American, or that nature of descent.
Are you sure he was standing on the table?
He was standing on the table, and there were approximately 5 or 6 shots. The revolver that was used was a small caliber revolver. I examined the revolver very closely. Rosie Greer had it in his hand after he apprehended the assailant.
Rosie Greer, Kennedy's...
Rosie Greer apprehended the assailant along with several others. There were 5 or 6 people who had him.
Where did...
Small pistol, is that it?
It was a small caliber revolver.
Where did Senator Kennedy appear to be hit?
He appeared to be hit in his side and possibly grazed in the temple here. Now, it's very hard to say because when individuals are hit, they spread blood throughout the body. However, he was definitely hit more than once.
Did he slump to the ground at that time?
He fell to the ground. He showed very little emotion. He was cognizant and he was awake when they picked him up and took him to Central Receiving Hospital.
Did he say anything at all that you remember?
As I can remember, he said nothing. His wife came to his side and she spoke to him. However, I could not see whether he responded one way or the other.
Who were the others who were injured? Can you be specific?
There was one other individual, tall individual, dark blue suit. He was either an FBI man or a Kennedy aide. Seems as if he was hit more critically.
This witness clearly more specific on the situation with Senator Robert Kennedy.
George Green of the New Image.
Not too specific on those others who were injured.
No, I'm
His
not.
report
But I
that
was right
Senator
there.
Kennedy was conscious right after the shot or
George
shots were
Green.
fired at him, but beyond that, not too much clear from here. Joe?
I only saw...
Secretary, Roger Mudd, who has also been covering the Kennedy campaign, is standing by now at Good Samaritan Hospital. We have a telephone link up, no video. But Roger, what late report do you have?
Senator Kennedy was just taken from this hospital, which is the Central Receiving Hospital in downtown Los Angeles, to the Good Samaritan Hospital. The senator's color, when I saw him put on a stretcher in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel, his color appeared to be good. He was on the floor. He was bleeding. The only treatment applied to him in the hallway was packs of ice. There was absolute turmoil and shrieking, and all the memories of 1963 swept through that assembly hall, pandemonium, and cameramen and photographers who had been with the senator now for 3 and 4 months crying, some of them berserk. Finally, the senator was removed and taken here to central receiving. It appeared that he was hit twice, once in the hip and once in the head. As I say, though, his color was good, and he is alive. There's been no medical report issued on his condition, but obviously the switch from here at Central Receiving to Good Samaritan indicates that some serious surgery will be required.
Well, Roger, as my recollection of Los Angeles is that Central Receiving is equipped to handle immediate emergencies, and as I recall, Good Samaritan does have an intensive care unit. I think the only reason we would mention that is that Senator Kennedy's chances are very good given that kind of immediate treatment available.
Well, I'll take your word for that because I'm not familiar with the hospitals, Joe, and your explanation makes more sense than my snap judgment as to why it's moving. There were, in addition to the senator, 3 other persons hit.
I was told that Paul Schrade and Jesse Unruh were hit. Now, I remember Paul Schrade
Schrade is a union official
of the United Auto Workers, yes.
Who was recognized just 10 minutes by the senator before this cheering, happy crowd as one of the great movers behind the Kennedy campaign in California. I have not heard that Jesse Unruh was hit.
Well, that was an early report we had, and apparently no one has yet confirmed that.
At one point, I finally got into this kitchen corridor, and Mrs. Kennedy was standing all alone. She'd been abandoned for the minute, and I went up to her and put my arm around her waist, and she recognized me and grabbed me as if I were just an oak tree, just something to cling to. And as she teetered there, not knowing whether her husband was alive or dead, she bumped into someone who was sitting in a chair just behind her. And this seated person muttered something about Kennedy, and she turned and said, "How dare you mention my husband?" And this young man looked up at her and said, "Ma'am, I've been hit too." And she suddenly realized what an awkward thing it was for the young man and her, and she leaned down and kissed him on the face. He was the 4th of the victims. He did not appear to be seriously wounded, quite conscious, but sitting down and showing some blood. The person who did the shooting is as yet unidentified. He appeared to the cameramen who were close by to be about 25 years old, wearing a blue sweater. He emptied all 6 shots from the revolver that he carried, and when the explosions went off and were finished firing, Roosevelt Greer, the big football player with the New York Giants, who has been serving as a Kennedy bodyguard through the California campaign, immediately pinned this suspect to the floor, and he was quickly moved out in a police car. It took some time before doctors could get through to the senator, and in about, I think, 10 minutes, the ambulance came.
Roger, let me just interrupt a moment. Late report now that the press aide to Senator Kennedy, Roy Ringer, one of his California press aides, said that the senator was hit at least twice in the head and the side. He said another witness said Paul Schrade, as we've already reported, of the United Auto Workers, was wounded also in the head at the time the senator was shot.
Paul Schrade was the one in the dark blue suit with the striped tie who was lying, feet pointed in the same direction as the senator. He was obviously following him as they were making their way out of the embassy room. The senator had waited, some time before appearing before this crowd because he wanted to be sure that he had a victory. He didn't want to come down and make a Tom Dewey statement as he said upstairs in the hotel, and they were just leaving. And it was a happy moment.
Roger, are you at Central Receiving now? Or?
I am.
All right. I assume that you'll be on your way to Good Samaritan.
I will.
And we'll be standing by for further reports from you.
All right, Joe.
Thank you. That report from Roger Mudd, CBS News correspondent who has been covering the Kennedy campaign in Los Angeles, who was with the senator at Central Receiving Hospital. Senator Kennedy has now been moved to Good Samaritan Hospital, which has an intensive care unit, and if medical attention is what he needs, at least there's that assurance at this time that he will get as much as he needs. He, at last report, was hit twice in the head, once in the hip. and another man, Paul Schrade of the United Auto Workers, was also wounded. CBS News correspondent Mike Wallace is standing by here in our New York studios. Mike, what's your report?
Evidently, an unidentified television reporter said that the man who fired the shot was about 10 feet from Senator Kennedy when it all took place. Before he was removed from the hotel, a priest, a Roman Catholic priest, said that he attempted to give the senator final rites of the Roman Catholic Church, but that the surging crowd pushed him away. The priest said, "I gave him the rosary, and he clenched it tightly, and I was pushed away. There was blood on his head." The arrested man was hurried through a lobby throng, still yelling and screaming at the news of the shooting. Many tried to reach the men, but police hustled him out of the lobby and down the stairs to an exit. Terry Drinkwater, who was at the scene of the shooting, has a diagram. Terry, come in, please.
Mike, we can see from this diagram of the embassy room here, the main ballroom in which we're now standing. This is the center of the floor where our camera is now. Here's the speaker stand from which Senator Kennedy spoke. Just behind it is this small anteroom. There are some dumb waiters in there. It's an area where speakers wait before they come up to the platform or after they've finished talking to where they go. This is where Senator Kennedy was wounded. He was taken out this door here, down this hallway to these steps, and out to a waiting ambulance outside. A very quick trip, and fortunately very quickly to the hospital, as you learned from Roger Mudd. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News at the Ambassador.
Joe, do you have anything further there?
Well, I think the main obligation we have, Mike, is to, I imagine across the nation, more and more people who are hearing of this news are tuning in now to find out exactly what happened tonight. Let us quickly bring you up to date. Senator Robert F. Kennedy appeared in the embassy room of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, which was his California headquarters for the California primary. It was a victory celebration. There was a very large crowd crushing in at the speaker's platform. The senator mounted the platform. Several persons spoke. It was a mood of jubilation. It was obvious that he had won the victory he had sought and, according to his political fortunes, needed so desperately to stay in the race for the presidency. At some point then, a man standing apparently on a table, it's still not clear exactly how it happened, or at least it isn't clear to this reporter, many conflicting reports. A man described as 25 years old, appearing to be Mexican descent, took a pistol and fired at the senator, hit the senator twice in the head, according to our last reports, once in the hip, and also hit Paul Schrade, who is a United Auto Workers Union executive in Los Angeles. The two men, Senator Kennedy and Mr. Schrade, were then taken through a kitchen exit, as Terry Drinkwater just showed you, rushed to Central Receiving Hospital, which in Los Angeles is used primarily for treatment of emergency cases, especially police and firemen of the city who are injured while in the performance of duties. That assured that he got immediate treatment. The reports from eyewitnesses said his eyes were open, there was blood on his face, he was breathing, he had color. Roger Mudd reported that at least he was conscious. At Central Receiving Hospital, in a few moments, apparently it was decided that the senator would then be removed to Good Samaritan Hospital, which is also nearby the Ambassador Hotel. There, an intensive care unit is available, and the obvious entourage of doctors, which began with at least 5 doctors at the Ambassador Hotel, apparently built up and included more doctors, assuring, as we said, that Senator Kennedy is at least getting the best medical treatment available at the moment. He is in the Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles, the victim of gunshot wounds fired by an unknown assailant, identified simply as being 25 years old, no more than that, a man who was tackled by Rosie Greer, football player, who is one of Kennedy's bodyguards.
Joe.
Now, Mike, the one thing I think everyone is interested in, which we have now, is videotape of the event as it actually happened, recorded by CBS cameras in the Ambassador Hotel.
Hey, here's a man, listen to him. Kennedy, rah, rah, rah. Kennedy, rah, rah, rah. Kennedy,
That was the exact moment that the shots were fired, at least 6 shots, according to the reports we have. Fired at Senator Kennedy, Paul Schrade, other people on the speaker's platform. Obviously, pandemonium erupted. The door on the side leads out to the kitchen, and apparently that was the way Senator Kennedy was taken off the speaker's platform.
Right here.
This was the scene a few moments after the shooting of Senator Kennedy and at least 2 other persons in the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. The Ambassador Hotel serving as the senator's headquarters for his California primary battle. The senator was taken through a side door. Apparently he was on his way out of the room, just moving to the side when the shots were fired. Paul Schrade of the United Auto Workers also hit. We have just received a report that Senator Kennedy was given the last rites of the Roman Catholic Church at about 1 a.m. The Reverend Thomas Picha said he administered the rites to the wounded senator in the emergency room of the Central Receiving Hospital. We should caution you that that is an alarming report. The senator has been moved to the Good Samaritan Hospital. This is the scene as immediately after Senator Kennedy had been shot.
The microphone, please, immediately. Is there a doctor? Everybody, please stay back. Please stay back. We need a doctor here.
Is there a doctor in the house? Please, it's very important. We need a doctor. Is there a doctor?
Quiet!
Quiet, please. Quiet, please. The best thing everybody can do here...
This is Stephen Smith, Senator Kennedy's brother-in-law. Beside him, Jean Kennedy, one of the Kennedy sisters, Mr. Smith's wife. Smith is trying to restore some order in the crowd and to calm the pandemonium.
The best thing and the most helpful thing that everyone can do here is to leave the room in an orderly way. Now, will you please do that for us? Will you please do that? Will you move out quietly, please? We don't know what's happened, but all of this noise and confusion is not going to help. So will you please clear the room? Will you please clear the room in an orderly fashion? Thank you.
Yes. I'm with you.
Would everyone please clear the room? Otherwise, nothing can be done.
Stay with me. Stay right here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get more. Can't do anything. You can help to clear the room.
Now, that man you just saw being rushed off apparently is the 17-year-old boy who was also near the senator when the shots were fired. 3 persons, at least at this point, have been reported as wounded in the wild shooting that erupted as Senator Kennedy apparently was stepping between a speaker's platform and about to leave through a kitchen door, the kitchen serving as an entrance exit in that crowded embassy room.
You can cooperate with the sympathies. Yeah, we've got a doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a doctor now. Will you please clear the room and offer your prayers at this hour? Let us please clear the room. Your greatest help will be to clear this room. Will you please clear the room?
Would everyone please clear the room? You can help us most by clearing the room, please. Everyone leave.
Will you please clear this room so that we can get medical aid to the senator?
There's a report that he's been given the last rites circulated here, and a couple of people have fainted.
Sure, that's it.
This is Terry Drinkwater in the lobby of the Ambassador. The report that Senator Kennedy had been given the last rites has now been circulated here. On the other side of the lobby, 2 or 3 women fainted, and you can hear the report of the last rites being administered, as reported by Joe Benty, does not indicate that Senator Kennedy is dead. It is a very common practice in the Catholic Church to administer the last rites when there is a question of serious injury. But you can see by this news passing through here what it causes. Just hysterical women.
Terry, can you hear me?
Simply indicative of what has happened here tonight. But this is not a report that Senator Kennedy is dead. It's not at all that report. Yes, Joe, I can hear you.
Yes, we were trying to point that out in order to be very precise and to not alarm unnecessarily any of our viewers who are listening and watching this report. As you pointed out, the last rites have been administered, the last rites of the Catholic Church, but that is merely a formality, a spiritual necessity for a Catholic in this kind of a situation. The senator, from all that we can tell and through as a result of experience in Los Angeles, has the best available medical attention. He is being treated now at the Good Samaritan Hospital. A neurosurgeon is standing by, which would apparently confirm the earlier reports that the senator was wounded in the head, and also, according to those reports, hit 3 times, once in the hip.
There are a number of people here, Joe, in the lobby of the Ambassador here who have fallen to their knees in prayer for Senator Kennedy around a fountain which is in the middle of this hotel lobby. A moment ago, it was a very hysterical situation here as the reports of the last rites and the erroneous reports of Senator Kennedy's death circulated through here. But now that most people understand that the last rites do not mean that Senator Kennedy is dead, or indeed that he necessarily is in terribly critical condition. So at this point, many people falling to their knees in prayer for Senator Kennedy's recovery and for the recovery of the others who were wounded here.
Terry?
Yes, Joe.
We're still trying to trace down the assailant. All that we have so far is an identification of a man approximately 25 years old, and according to one of the eyewitnesses you talked to, who appeared to be dark-skinned, perhaps Mexican-American. Have you any other confirmation on the assailant?
It is essentially that piece of information, that witness, and 6 or 7 others to whom the authorities are now talking inside the main ballroom. The man who did the shooting has apparently been apprehended, but the police in Los Angeles have not released his name. He has been taken into custody, we understand, and has been taken away from the Ambassador to the police station and presumably in downtown Los Angeles.
Terry, I'm gathering from the picture that I see there that apparently there's some kind of a shift now in the crowd, and people are kneeling down, beginning to pray.
A number of people in the center of the lobby here, Joe, there are about 300 here, have knelt in prayer. Behind me, more kneeling at every moment around this fountain, which is very moving and very changed scene from what it was just a few seconds ago when the erroneous reports of Senator Kennedy's grave condition were circulating here. These are primarily young people who remain here to listen for any word of Senator Kennedy's condition. These are the loyal supporters. I recognize several faces that one saw in the very early part of Senator Kennedy's presidential effort, people who followed him all the way through and worked all along and are now here waiting, just like the rest of us, for a word of his condition and praying.
At the time that the shots were fired, the impression I have from reports received here through the wire services is that the senator had just stepped off the speaker's podium and was about to leave the hall. What exactly happened, or could you tell from where you were?
He had moved back from the podium, waved a number of times at the crowd, shaken perhaps 30 hands, people crowding on the stage which should hold maybe 50 people, but there were 200 in all on it. And slowly he moved towards the back of the stage, down a small flight of stairs, and into this small room which we showed you on the diagram a short time ago, and it was there that it occurred. He did not come down into the milling crowd that was in front of the podium, but simply walked out the back. There was no indication, Joe, no special security of any kind, no indication that anything like this was envisioned, that the police had had any tips of any kind. It was completely unexpected, as much so as the assassination in Dallas.
Had he actually stepped out of the embassy room, and was he about to make his way out? Is that what it appeared to be at the time?
Stepped from the embassy room into this ante-room, which leads from the room, and then he was going to go down a back hallway and up to his suite on the 5th floor here. But instead, of course, after the shots were fired and his wounding, he was carried out the opposite way, again away from the embassy room to the ambulance and out of the hospital.
Roosevelt Greer, one of Kennedy's bodyguards and also a well-known professional football player, apparently is the man who captured the assailant. What happened to the assailant at that point?
Piecing together what witnesses we've been able to talk to, the indication is that he was taken the opposite direction from Senator Kennedy, back inside the hotel by, first by Greer and then by a number of other Kennedy aides and supporters who were crowded there, and then a few seconds later by some security guards who were at the other end of the corridor. Where he went from there, we do not know.
He undoubtedly then is in custody at some point, whether it's in the hotel or somewhere else.
It's our understanding that he has been taken from the hotel, and we presume he is in custody at a police station.
You have not yet heard any reports as to whether the man said anything, screamed anything? What?
3 witnesses have indicated that he did not scream anything, or either before the shots were fired or after he pulled the trigger. He apparently stood on this table. It may have been a table, it may have been some type of can which was used for a large supply of food being brought up to the ballroom. It rose rather high, maybe 4 feet. Standing on top of that, when he fired the shots, did not yell anything at all, made no comment to the senator. It is not clear that the senator even saw the man. Fired the shots, was apprehended by Greer, and pulled from the top of this table or this barrel arrangement and taken away.
The only report that we've had, Terry, which is again from wire services, from one of the eyewitnesses, said the man was captured and was yelling something about saving the country. This again is an eyewitness who quoted the gunman as saying something like, and this is the quote, "I did it for my country." These late reports now on the condition of Senator Kennedy. An aide said today Senator Kennedy's condition is stable after being shot at least twice. There are conflicting reports here. Twice in the head and once in the hip was the first report, and now apparently this later report says Senator Kennedy was shot just twice while leaving a victory celebration at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, which had been serving as his headquarters in the California primary. This is a direct quote from Frank Mankiewicz, that's Senator Kennedy's press secretary. Quote, "He is breathing well and he has a good heart. I do not think he is conscious," although again another conflict in earlier reports from eyewitnesses who said they noticed the senator, his eyes were open, he was saying something, and he appeared to have generally good color as he was taken from the Ambassador Hotel. Mankiewicz said Kennedy, who was transferred to Good Samaritan Hospital after a brief stop in the emergency room of the Central Receiving Hospital, was wounded twice in the head, in the front forehead, and near the right ear. That is Frank Mankiewicz's report. He is Senator Kennedy's press secretary. We have not yet had an official report from either Central Receiving Hospital, which is, as we have told you, an emergency hospital for Los Angeles fire and policemen, nor have we had a report from Good Samaritan Hospital. The only indication we've had as to the nature of the wounds is that a neurosurgeon is and was standing by. Senator Kennedy undoubtedly is at Good Samaritan Hospital now, which does have an intensive care unit and a very highly professional staff, which should give him at least immediate top-notch care, which I'm sure is the major concern at the moment. Our stage manager at the Kennedy headquarters, Dave Fox, was one of those who witnessed the shooting. We now have a videotape of his report.
This is Terry Drinkwater. This is Terry Drinkwater, CBS News. We've had an indication of clarification of exactly what has happened back there. That Senator Kennedy was involved in a shooting, that a newsman was involved, and that one other man was involved. There are now 3 doctors back there caring for them. There's a large amount of blood on the floor of this anteroom. Ice is now being brought into the room, into the back. What do you understand happened?
From what I understand, there were several shots fired back there. Of course, panic immediately arose. They were locked off the whole place. Now the back there is an absolute madhouse. People are screaming and shouting. The Kennedy staff are all just in panic. There's just absolute madness back there, screaming and shouting and fighting.
Were you back there? It is not clear at this time the condition of Senator Kennedy or any of the 2 other people who are reportedly wounded and who are back in the anteroom here now. There are at least 3 doctors there, 2 of whom were out here in the auditorium, in the victory celebration room, listening to the Kennedy statement just a few minutes ago.
Joe, Benny, I've been sitting here with some of these news service dispatches trying to get some sort of a compilation out of this thing, both as chronology of events and also as to how many other persons possibly were injured. Seemed to be a great deal of confusion, which is understandable at a time of such a shocking tragedy as this. You have reported, of course, Paul Shreddy, the head of the UAW for the western area of the country. There seem to be at least 2 other persons wounded. ABC's stage manager, Fox's counterpart there at the embassy room, Bill Weisel, is listed in one of the news service dispatches as having been injured, apparently not too seriously. It seems to be a abdominal wound. And a 17-year-old Los Angeles boy, Erwin Stroll, injured not too seriously, it also seems. The reports that a woman was wounded have not been confirmed further than that original report, and several of us have seen on television there Steve Smith is quite all right, yes. And those early reports that he was wounded are obviously erroneous.
Also, Walter, I think I should add that we were reporting based on immediate eyewitness reports, which, as we all know, can be very erroneous, that Jesse Unruh had been shot and wounded, and apparently that is untrue. Best we can figure now is that the senator, Paul Shreddy, the ABC stage manager, a 17-year-old youth, and possibly a woman. The only condition report we have is, and it's not even a condition report, is on Senator Kennedy, and all that is said, which I imagine is encouraging, that his condition is stable. He was seen leaving the central receiving hospital with an oxygen mask on his face and a plasma bottle being carried beside him, and appeared at that point to be unconscious. But when the shots were first fired, Roger Mudd and Terry Drinkwater said that he did appear to have color and was alive.
It's quite possible. By that time he's under sedation, yes, too. There is one interesting discrepancy, it seems to be here, possible one. They say that this 25-year-old, curly-haired, olive-skinned assailant emptied 6 shots from a revolver. Well, we have 4 persons listed as injured and 3 bullet wounds with Senator Kennedy himself. Either single bullets did an awful lot of damage in that room, or there's a rather wide discrepancy in these reports.
As you know better, I think, than anyone, early reports tend to be very erroneous. From what I can gather now, Senator Kennedy was hit just twice. The report that he had been hit in the hip apparently is not confirmed by any of the later reports. Twice in the head, according to Frank Mankiewicz, his press secretary.
Did we have a report earlier that Senator McCarthy had gone back down to his headquarters and had a moment of silent prayer with his followers?
Yes, I believe we have. Terry Drinkwater is standing by at the Ambassador Hotel. Terry?
Joe, at my side here is Dr. Ross Miller. He is one of the physicians, he's a surgeon from Los Angeles, one of the first who came to Senator Kennedy's side. Can you describe the senator's wounds?
Well, they were a mass of blood, and he had head injuries. The extent of them could not be ascertained immediately. We proceeded to give him emergency care, and at the receiving hospital, emergency procedures were started. He was given blood dextran, which is a blood substitute, and albumin and oxygen, and at that point his vital signs were stable. The extent of his injuries could not be ascertained at the emergency hospital.
Where was he hit?
He was hit in the face, and because of the blood, we didn't probe any of the wounds. We didn't do anything because he was being transferred for definitive treatment, and it would have been dangerous to begin any probing of wounds at that point.
Was he fully conscious, doctor?
No.
What, if you can tell us now, is the general prognosis for someone who was in this condition, who was hit in that?
I would be unable to give a prognosis unless I could ascertain the extent of the injuries.
Before he became unconscious, did he say anything at all?
No, not while I was with him.
What type of first treatment did you and the other doctors who rushed to his side give?
The injury was, a dressing was applied and a tamponade to prevent any external bleeding, and he was placed on a cot for transfer to the receiving hospital. At the receiving hospital, the emergency procedures were instituted. He was given oxygen and intravenous feedings as indicated, and following this, his vital signs were taken to ascertain his state, and he was immediately transferred to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Were his vital signs good? Were they indicating his pulse, breathing?
Well, his pulse was rapid but full and bounding, and his heartbeat was good. This is encouraging. It indicates that his immediate injuries were not incapacitating to that extent.
Was there a prolonged wait? It seemed like a very long time for those of us outside the door before he was transferred, taken away from the ambassador.
In all honesty, I must say that I have no knowledge of time because I was very concerned and very involved during this period, and I have no knowledge of time.
How many others were hit, doctor?
I know of two others. I also took care of Paul Schrade. I did not go in the ambulance to the receiving hospital with the senator because there was another physician who was in the ambulance. I stayed with Paul Schrade. He had a deep laceration of the forehead. Apparently the bullet that hit him ricocheted off the scalp, and although he had a great deal of blood loss and there was a lot of blood around, apparently his injuries are not critical.
Did you take Senator Kennedy's pulse?
Yes, I did.
What was it?
It was 130, which is very rapid, but it was full and bounding,
but not critically rapid at that point.
Well, it would depend on the extent of the injuries. It could be.
There have been several reports about the direction from which the bullet or bullets were fired. Could you clarify those as a medical man? Can you tell us, was he hit just in the head or on the side or in the back of the neck?
Well, he had blood all over his face, and we didn't probe the wounds. There was blood, and we only dressed the wound immediately and started proceedings to transfer him to another hospital.
So you're really not sure from those first?
That's correct.
Did Mrs. Kennedy come up to you at the time you were treating the senator? And so
well,
what did
she was there at the receiving hospital during the entire period, along with Pierre Salinger and John Glenn and other members of his immediate party.
How did Mrs. Kennedy appear to take this?
Well, obviously she was terribly upset. I thought she handled herself excellently. She was not in a state of panic. She was deeply concerned about her husband, having gone through a similar episode. I'm sure she was desperately concerned. She acted gallantly and courageously, and I think she handled herself with the greatest degree of composure under the circumstances.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
You're quite welcome.
Appreciate it. Interview with one of the first medical men to come to Senator Kennedy's side just a very few seconds after he was wounded, Dr. Ross Miller of Los Angeles. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, The Ambassador.
Terry, this is Walter Cronkite in New York. Or that's
We're-
Joe Benny in New York. Terry?
I think we have already set up a connection, Walter, in Los Angeles with John Hart, who's at the police station. John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Would you please give your report?
Well, about a minute after Senator Kennedy finished his victory statement, and we were pushing through back of the stage, which was through a kitchen area, a crowd of us. I was about 15 to 20 feet behind the senator, whom I could not see for the crowd convening. I was right behind Fred Dutton, and we had just passed double steel doors that were open through the kitchen area when we heard what occurred to me in the beginning to be balloons popping, because it was a light snapping pop. But then there were what sounded like a full-loaded 22 caliber revolver because of the light sound emptying into the crowd 20 feet in front of us. We all swayed back and defensively and burst forward. As we pushed our way through, Fred Dutton just in front of me, Ethel Kennedy grabbed my arm and begged me to get me to her husband. We were only 8 feet away from where he lay on the cement floor. But in front of us were a group of photographers and newsmen who had locked arms to keep the crowd back and to get some air to the two victims, which I could see. Senator Kennedy was lying on his back, no visible wounds. His shirt had been opened. They were still calling for a doctor. The noise level was deafening with screams of surprise and anger. And just behind Senator Kennedy was a young man, less than 30 years old, who was lying on his back, his head resting on a hat, and a sheet of blood was hanging from his head. He was obviously badly wounded. Those are the only two visible victims at the time. Senator Kennedy alive at the time. He was breathing. His eyes were fluttering. I took hold of Mrs. Kennedy to break through that line and lost her as I went through, and she was engulfed in the crowd. Finally, somehow, she grew, kneeled beside her husband, and 3 or 4 minutes after the shooting, a doctor finally got to the senator, put his ear to his chest, and about this time, along a row of those tables, you know, that we eat breakfast on in your room in the morning in a hotel, Jess Unruh, the Speaker of the California Assembly, leaped up and began physically throwing out people in a great rage to get them out of the way, and he appealed for help and get air to the senator. We left quickly with some news film, and when we left, the senator was still visibly alive, and that's what we saw and heard.
John, you do not yet have any idea if the assailant is still in the hotel or at the police station?
I am now at the Rampart Street, the Rampart Precinct Station. None of the police here are surrounding the desk with shotguns. Who will admit that he is here. They obviously are told not to talk to us, but the evidence is that the assailant is here. One of the people who saw him described him to me as a young man about 25 with bushy hair, appearing to be a student and wearing a bulletproof sweater. And that is all I know.
All right, thank you very much, John Hart.
Right.
Obviously, the difficulty in a coastal call on a beeper telephone causing some feedback, but I think John Hart's report was very clear. Another spectator to the tragedy that befell the Kennedy family once again tonight in the embassy room of the Ambassador Hotel. Senator Robert Kennedy enjoying the fruits of the final open primary victory in California, having talked to his supporters in the ballroom, making his way out when a man somewhere between the kitchen and the ballroom stage fired into the crowd around the senator, apparently hit Senator Kennedy twice. We have conflicting reports about how Paul Schrade was hit. He is the West Coast Regional Director of the United Auto Workers, a strong Kennedy supporter, very active in California politics. Apparently, according to one report, a bullet passed through Senator Kennedy and hit Schrade, but we have not had any confirmation on that. Senator Kennedy has been taken to the Good Samaritan Hospital. When seen being moved from the Central Receiving Hospital, which has an excellent emergency care unit, onto Good Samaritan, which is well-staffed with fine physicians and an intensive care unit. There was an oxygen mask over his lower face and a bottle of plasma accompanying the stretcher. And yet, despite that appearance, despite the fact that he was given the last rites of the Roman Catholic Church, which would be standard in this sort of case, we have a report from Frank Mankiewicz, who is Senator Kennedy's press secretary, that the senator's condition is stable. He was reported unconscious when moved, but as Walter Cronkite noted, very likely he had been given sedation and undoubtedly was reacting. His body was automatically reacting to the shock of the physical trauma he had just undergone. He is at Good Samaritan Hospital now, and we're waiting for Roger Mudd to get to that hospital. I'm sure that more and more people are turning on their television and radio sets to try and find out what has happened as this news spreads around the country. The senator's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Kennedy, were not awakened or informed of the shooting, according to Ann Gargan, a niece of Joseph Kennedy, Senator Kennedy's father. She said Mrs. Kennedy probably would be told when she awakened to attend an early morning Roman Catholic Mass. As you probably know, Senator Kennedy's father is a semi-invalid as a result of a stroke several years ago. Just another of the many tragedies that have befallen the Kennedy family, particularly the brothers. Joseph killed in World War II. The president, John F. Kennedy, assassinated in 1963. Ted Kennedy nearly killed in an airplane accident. And now Robert Kennedy, shot in Los Angeles, celebrating a victory, a celebration which was short-lived, quickly turned into tragedy. David Shoemaker is now at the Hilton Hotel, which is serving as the headquarters for Senator McCarthy, Senator Kennedy's primary opponent. David, what report do you have?
Joe, Senator McCarthy was watching television in his bedroom in his suite here in the Beverly Hilton Hotel with several members of his staff and a few friends when word was brought in, at first only a rumor, of course, that Senator Kennedy had been shot. A few moments after that, Mrs. McCarthy came in from another room in the suite, and the senator sat on a couch with his head in his hands, watching quietly as the story unfolded on the screen. Their first concern was for their children. Several of the McCarthy children were in the suite. Mary and Ellen both were outside the suite. They were all brought to be with their parents so that Mr. and Mrs. McCarthy knew they were safe. And about the same time, a police guard was thrown up on the 7th floor of the hotel, and reporters and well-wishers and friends of the senator were asked to leave. They are now in seclusion. We understand that the senator's schedule for tomorrow, which included a trip to Seattle, Washington, has been canceled, and it appears that he will return to Washington, D.C. sometime during the day.
Thank you, David Shoemaker, standing by at the Hilton Hotel. Were there any statements issued by the McCarthy people upon hearing of this, or any immediate plans on the part of Senator McCarthy announced as to what he might do now?
I understand, I was upstairs with the senator. I understand that downstairs that one of the senator's aides made an announcement and asked that the prayers of Senator McCarthy's supporters go to Senator Kennedy, and then the crowd that was here in the hotel quickly broke up. As I said, Senator McCarthy apparently will return to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, calling off his campaign schedule.
Thank you, David Shoemaker, at the Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles. We have just received a report from London. Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy, the wife of the assassinated President John F. Kennedy, was told of the news today, the shooting of Senator Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy in Los Angeles, by so far an unidentified assailant, but a man who has been apprehended and is presently in the custody of the police in Los Angeles. Mrs. Kennedy said, no, it cannot have happened. This exact reaction was passed on to newsmen by her sister, Princess Lee Radziwill, and Mrs. Kennedy simply wanted more information and apparently has now been trying to contact Los Angeles through international telephone and is waiting for some response, as I'm sure all members and close friends of the Kennedy family are terribly discouraged by this event and concerned over the senator's condition. The best report we can give you at this time simply is the one-word statement from Frank Mankiewicz, Senator Kennedy's press aide. He said the senator's condition is stable, and Dr. Ross Miller, the physician who immediately attended Senator Kennedy, as you saw in the interview with Terry Drinkwater, said that his pulse was a little fast but good, and all of the eyewitness reports that we've been able to get to this point, at least until the senator was taken to Central Receiving Hospital, indicate that at most of the point until he was received in the hospital, he was conscious, murmured some things to people standing immediately beside him, and has survived, yet we cannot give you any further report on his condition. Walter?
You know, Joe, I was just looking into some old clippings here in our files on the Kennedy family, an ill-starred family with all of its brilliance and its contributions to American history of these last many years. And there's a remarkable quote in there from a book that Joseph McCarthy wrote called The Remarkable Kennedys, I believe was the title of it. And it was quoting Jack Kennedy. And he said at one time, just as I went into politics because Joe died, if anything happened to me tomorrow, my brother Bobby would run for my seat in the Senate. And if Bobby died, Teddy would take over for him. There is the dynastic feeling among the Kennedys, but goodness gracious, nobody would expect this much to happen to a single family, and why, heaven only knows. Yeah.
Walter, we've just been told that correspondent Terry Drinkwater at the Hilton Hotel has another eyewitness to the shooting. Terry?
Terry Drinkwater at the Ambassador Hotel here. Martin Petrisky, who was a waiter at the hotel, was 4 or 5 feet from the senator at the time of the shooting. You describe what you saw, sir?
Well, we were standing there, and Senator Kennedy had just come off from making his speech, and he was walking through the kitchen, and he started to shake hands with us as the staff that was in the kitchen as he was coming through. And there was this guy leaning against the steam table, and Carl was pushing him. Carl Yucker, our captain, was pushing him by his left hand, trying to get him through the little crowd that was there. And all of a sudden, this guy jumped out, and he started firing the gun. And Carl jumped out and grabbed the guy by the neck, and he let go of the senator, and the senator started to go down towards his knees. I think he was hit up around the head, around the temple or somewhere around there. I don't know for sure. And all of a sudden, there was another guy alongside of him, about 2 feet. He started to fall down, and shots just seemed to, keep firing. I say about 5, 6 shots.
Can you describe what the man with the gun looked like?
Well, he had curly hair, and he looked like a Filipino.
Did he say or shout anything?
No, nothing that I heard, because everyone was screaming, grab him, get the gun, get the senator, and, it was just a commotion. Everyone started to pile in at the time. It sounded like a cap pistol or a firecracker going off in the kitchen.
Was there only one person with a gun, only one person shooting?
That's all that I've seen shooting, yes.
Thank you very much. One of the waiters and a witness here. As you perhaps have seen behind us, 150 or so sheriffs have now moved into the hotel. They are clearing it of the spectators, the people here who are waiting to find out what the latest news on the senator's condition was. The number of Kennedy signs were here a short time ago. The sign said Kennedy for President, and lettered in Crayola above the name Kennedy, God bless Kennedy for President. Ray Drinkwater, CBS News at the Ambassador.
Terry Drinkwater?
Yes, Walter.
Yeah, this is Walter Cronkite in New York. Terry, has there been any information at all on the size, the caliber of this gun that did the damage tonight?
Several witnesses have said it was a very small weapon. Beyond that, there has been nothing. None of the witnesses to whom we have talked apparently have been experts enough in guns to know its precise caliber or its make. That, to our knowledge here, has not been established.
Terry, let me add something here for your information. For your information, Terry, the last report we've had on the assailant, the police said the man is in custody. He was about 25 years old, 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighs 135 pounds. He was wearing blue jeans. He was not identified by name, although several of the eyewitnesses said he appeared to be Mexican-American descent, dark-skinned. And one man quoted the gunman as crying. These are the words of the quote, "I did it for my country, I love my country." And that was all that was reported as having been heard by the gunman after he had fired the shots at Senator Kennedy and Paul Schrady and 2 other people who apparently were wounded in the same general area just between the speaker's platform and the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel. Walter?
I was just wondering, as I suppose everybody must be in these early hours of the morning who is up and knows this terrible story from Los Angeles, as to what's going to happen now to one of Robert Kennedy's favorite pieces of legislation to which he had loaned his name in Congress, which is a strong gun control law. Certainly with this series of tragedies since the assassination of his brother, President John Kennedy, and then Martin Luther King, and now this to Senator Kennedy himself, the hue and cry must grow strong enough, I should think, for something to finally get through the Congress of the United States that would do something to control this vast supply of arms with which the crackpots in America can provide themselves.
Well, Walter, in that kind of an assessment, I'm sure we cannot ignore either the political implications of this act. Should the senator survive, and there is no indication that he will not, as we have tried to make clear in all of our reports, all that we have been told so far is that he was shot twice in the head, appeared to be in a stable condition. His pulse was running fast, but well enough, healthy enough, according to the doctor who treated him. We have some photographs here, and I don't quite know how we're going to show them, gentlemen. I suppose we can put them up this way. This is one of the immediate scenes immediately after the shooting. There's the senator on the floor, someone beside him, as yet unidentified. I have not read the cut line on either one of these photographs. Let me move this other one. There, I think you can see quite clearly that Senator Kennedy's eyes were open. He appears to be dazed in some kind of shock. Not a great deal of blood evident in this picture, which again, as I was trying to point out, would tend to reassure those who fear the worst in this kind of a report. The senator is getting, from the best I can tell, having spent some time in Los Angeles, he has been treated at 2 of the city's better hospitals, both well-staffed, both with the best of equipment, excellent emergency rooms, intensive care units.